Star Citizen is a beautiful game. Regardless of what you think of it as a project or as a game, it is beautiful, there's no denying that. And that will probably get me a little bit of flack from some people out there, but nonetheless, it is what it is and it is how I feel. Now, in the coming months, Star Citizen is about to take a bit of a jump forward. This one has been a very long time coming, although, to be honest, I wasn't expecting Pyro, the new star system, until, well, possibly next year, but it's looking like it might be arriving in the next few months, at least based on one of the recent videos from CIG.
And scheduled to make its way into Star Citizen Alpha 4.0 in just the next few months. Yeah, I didn't say before the end of this year. We're still targeting something a bit sooner than that.
So yeah, make of that what you will. What can we expect to see anyway? Well, a brand new environment, that is a full-on new star systems, a bunch of new space stations, 12 of them in fact, new mission types, some MMO-style dungeons, very interesting and perhaps complex, shall we say, jump point system, and of course the introduction of a fully fledged fire, which can, well, completely consume some of your spaceships. So let's start with those space stations, because I think these look really nice. We got Ruin Station, Checkmate Station, Dudley and Daughters, Gaslight, interesting name right there, Megumi Refueling, Obituary, yeah, very clever play on words there, Patch City, Rat's Nest, Rod's Fuel and Supplies, and Starlight Service Station. Now, each of these is going to be somewhat different and have its own aesthetic. Ruin Station, people will remember from the Pyro preview that was released at the beginning of the year, but apparently it has been extended and is now quite a bit larger than it was initially. Now, within these stations, people can expect all the same activities that were in the previous Star Citizen system of Stanton, but there's also going to be some other things here too, and one of these of special interest is Contested Zones. This is a new system that's going to be available on some of these stations. So these are social spaces. You can do all the usual things you'd expect to do here, hanging out with friends, getting your ship equipped, buying new equipment, getting food and all the rest of it. But right next door, even on the same station, through a hatchway, you will find these Contested Zones. So these will be very easy to access. Essentially then, these are what CIG have described as persistent MMO-style dungeons that have an ongoing nature to them. The contesting zones, well, they never stop, they never quit, and they're likely to be, well, quite dynamic in terms of getting inside of them and seeing what goes on. Now, of course, Star Citizen being Star Citizen, these will be PvP zones. You'll be always at risk of being ganked when you go into them, but there'll also be some other things going on in here as well. It seems to be there's going to be NPCs that you can have fights with, and also some animals that look a little bit like oversized rats as well. There is a reward system here. You'll be able to find loot and various other things. This includes equipment that you can then outfit and take on your rest of your journeys deeper into the Pyro star system. So very curious to see how these actually play out. Now, not the only things that are going to be in Pyro, there's also asteroid bases, and again, these look pretty neat. These are essentially procedurally generated, and the interior is kind of scooped out for players to get inside of. But keep in mind, these ones, more interestingly, are not just for on-foot activities. There is combined arms around these. So the activities will be a first-person shooter on board the bases, but also on the approach and around the asteroid will be space combat, spaceship combat. There is going to be exploration around these asteroid bases and inside of them, and that will include a whole bunch of different rewards. There will also be challenges within them. So it seems CIG are very keen on providing new activities within Pyro that simply aren't available in Stanton. These asteroids certainly seem to fit within that, and I do like the combined arms idea, the concept of needing a ship to approach them and perhaps get involved in a bit of combat, and then either directly head towards and get inside the asteroid, or sneak your way in. They did mention multiple routes into these bases. Some things could be through EVA or through a hangar, straight through the front door, and yeah, exploration, finding loot and equipment are a very big part of these bases. Now, it's not just the activities in Pyro that make the system unique, but also its overall theme. It is a system of lawlessness, so Pyro does lack law enforcement, and that makes it a haven for pirates, which in turn makes it a high-risk system, but one with potential high rewards. Some of the areas within this system, some of the stations, do seem to have restrictions based upon the player's reputation with the local factions. So players may be denied service or even attacked if they have a poor stand-in with some of these factions. It seems also that there's going to be some resource scarcity inside Pyro, at least compared to Stanton, which means that fuel and other supplies may be more expensive there. In terms of some of those factions, here's a few just to give you a bit of an insight to that. There's one called Xenothreat. This is an extremist group that has seized control of Ruin Station, which is pretty much the main station within Pyro, if not one of the main ones. And these people, this group, is a major power within the Pyro system. There's also the Rough and Ready gang. They control several stations, including Checkmate and Obituary, and these stations provide services to outlaws. In concept, they're a little bit like rest and relaxation that you find elsewhere. And then there's the Citizens for Pyro faction. This is a faction aiming to bring some order and civilization to the system, only in stations like Starlight Service Station. Okay, so we know a bit about Pyro and what it contains, but how do we get there? Well, this is where jump points come in. Jump points are naturally occurring phenomena that connect separate points in space, allowing players to travel between the star systems, and they're accessed through tunnel-like structures that players must navigate through in order to reach another system. And this isn't just just a vague description. This is something that players will actually have to do. You will have to actually physically navigate through these jump points, through these tunnels. Now, there's two different types of jump points. We have permanent jump points and transient jump points. Now, permanent ones, these are stable, they're always available for travel. They're larger and easier to navigate, making them the main routes for commerce and travel in general. Now, there's also infrastructure built around these permanent points, and that supports the commerce that flows through them and gives players the assistance they need to actually get from A to B. There's also crime stat restrictions here. Players with crime stats of level 3 or higher are denied access to permanent jump points by ATC, that's the air traffic control systems on both sides. You know, I kind of wonder that at this point in the future it shouldn't really be air traffic control, maybe a space traffic control. Anyway, the other type of jump point is transient jump points, and these are temporary and appear and disappear, offering alternative routes that require more skill to navigate. So in the future, CIG have said that the discovery of transient jump points will be, they'll be discoverable, and they can then be logged and sold for profit. So it looks like even though they are temporary, they may still hang around for a while. It seems that these transient jump points, the discovery of them, would be the perfect opportunity for exploration ships with the relevant equipment, so let's see how that goes. Anyway, the idea of transient jump points is allowing players with the higher criminal stats, or those players who just want to avoid any trouble, to sneak through. And although you won't know quite where you're going to end up in the other star system, it is another route through. Now, the permanent jump points, these do have a specific, very precise way to navigate through them. It's not a case like in EVE Online or other similar games where you just approach the gate, activate it and jump through. There's a complete process here, and this begins with you contacting ATC in order to request the jump. And I suspect there's some server trickery going on here, and that the ATC isn't just a case of in-game functionality, but rather something to do with what may be the servers as well. And the reason I say this is because ATC will give you the go-ahead to jump in a group, and it'll let you know at the size of the group that can jump through. So if you want to jump through with friends in other ships, you may have some limitations there on the number of players who can get through. And ATC seem to be the in-game resource that lets you know whether that can actually go ahead. Now, when you want to make the jump, you're going to need to align your ship with the jump point, and you're going to need to keep it aligned for a specific amount of time. If you misalign, if you move out of alignment, then you will lose your place in the queue and reset the alignment process. Other players, meanwhile, will be able to block your jump if they get in between you and the jump point. This will also mess with your alignment, although CIG have said they're looking at methods for dealing with this. Now, when the jump process is ready to begin, you'll fire a beam of quantum energy or bolt of quantum energy into the jump point. It will then rip a hole in space and activate the jump process. You'll then be sucked towards it. At this point, there is no escaping it. You are committed. The jump process itself does consume a quantum fuel, and you'll need the right amount of fuel to actually get through. If you haven't got enough, then you won't be able to initiate the jump. Now, there are also navigation challenges here, as we've said, so that means that players are going to have to actively navigate through the jump tunnels. and this means avoiding obstacles and managing turbulence. The difficulty of this will vary with ship size, with larger ships facing less turbulence but having less manoeuvrability. Ships also have a pool of what is essentially jump damage points, and you lose these by hitting objects or hitting the side of the tunnel, getting too close to the side of the tunnel, and if you run out of these points, you fail the jump. If you fail the jump, you can be placed all the way back in your origin system or deep into your destination system. This depends on how long you've been in the tunnel. Either way, you won't be where you intended to arrive. Now, CIG have said that at the moment, although this may change, the jump time will take around about 3 minutes. So that's 3 minutes of flying, 3 minutes of navigating through these rather shaky looking tunnels. Other players can also be inside the tunnels with you, either in front of you or behind you. However, it doesn't have two-way traffic, so you'll see no oncoming ships and not going to get any people trying to crash into you. And finally, upon exiting the jump point, the ships emerge in what CIG have described as a shotgun pattern, and this will minimise with collisions to reduce the risk of gate camping. So yeah, there's multiple arrival points, and this will prevent players from camping the arrival node. Another few interesting points here: there will be no combat in the tunnel, so if you switch out of navigation mode, that will result in you being expelled from the tunnel. Combat is not feasible as the jump drive must remain attuned throughout the journey, so yeah, no combat inside the jump points. It also seems there's going to be some AI-controlled security ships and turrets surrounding these jump points, which should protect some players at least from griefing in these locations. Now, one thing you may have noticed with the footage here is that the jump points no longer have these big structures around them, the circular gates that was in the footage from 2019. And CIG have said that this is a design decision. They don't want these structures there because these are naturally occurring things. These jump points exist naturally in space, and it's kind of not logical to have the jump gates there. For example, if you have a jump gate jumping through to another star system and you arrive in a brand new star system on the other side for the very first time, would there be a jump gate there? If not, then why do you need one in the first place? And if there is one there, how did it even get there? Now, talking of naturally occurring phenomena, another big feature coming to Star Citizen 4 is going to be fire mechanics. And fire is something that can start on your ships and, well, it will spread through the ships and could cause some pretty significant problems. So fire itself will have a number of different causes that can initiate it. For example, ship components reaching 0 health can ignite fires, misfires and wear. So components with high wear levels may misfire, leading to potential fires on board. Then there's factors such as environmental heat. For example, exposure to high temperatures, such as opening the door on a hot planet, can cause surfaces to auto-combust. And of course, there's the obvious ones with explosions and weapon impacts. These can also trigger fires inside of ships. So shooting your weapon at the walls, especially flammable walls, may start causing a problem at some point. Now, CIG have said that fire is closely integrated with the resource network system, and that means this is a system that manages ship systems and resources, and that ensures that fire should behave realistically within the constraints of ship environments. Again, this is something that CIG are claiming, but we'll have to wait and see for ourselves how this actually works in practice. But the concept is that fire will need the fire triangle to actually function, so that means fuel, oxygen and heat. Starve it of one of these and either the fire can't start or you're about to extinguish it. So this kind of extends into fire suppression. Once a fire breaks out, players will need to manage fires using the available tools, and this can include fire extinguishers. But the game might also include fire suppression systems such as venting the rooms to remove oxygen and thereby extinguishing the fires. Now, I'm only briefly touching on fire here in this video, but CIG have made a very lengthy video about it, so it is something that they think is going to be a very big deal for the game. And looking at the larger ships, I think it should be pretty interesting to see how that actually plays out. So there we have it. That's all the latest information about Star Citizen Alpha 4.0 rather, the Pyro update that CIG at the moment are claiming at least should be coming in the next few months, well before the end of the year at the least. So yeah, let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you. Meanwhile, why not check the other video linked on the screen right here. Thanks for watching this one all the way to the end. I'll catch you next time, and do take care.